Welcome to episode 2 of the Rational Homer. I am your host Kyle, and this is Sunday, March 1st. Many topics to get to today as we enter the final week of the regular season for most college basketball conferences. My reactions to the two Iowa State games this past week and the concerning areas that continue to arise. Arizona gets revenge on Kansas, and the Gators snack on some Razorbacks. Also, I'll give my top 5 sports movies, focusing mostly on basketball and baseball since those sports are heating up. I have also opened an email called rationalhomer@gmail.com. I'll take topic ideas, questions, and comments. Some may make it to air, so if you would like me to just use your first name and state or town, just let me know, otherwise I'll use anonymous. I'll introduce you like one of my favorite Everybody Loves Raymond episodes, where Ray's dad, Frank, calls into a radio show as Frank from Lynbrook trying to sell a record-setting field goal from a game he went to. It gives off the simpler time feel of conversing with someone rather than just through a text message. Iowa State traveled to Utah on Tuesday, February 24th to play the Utes. There was one significant lineup change as TJ Osselberger decided to put in Dominikas Plita into the starting lineup for Blake Buchanan. Rumors were Buchanan was kind of nursing an injury a little bit. And there wasn't much flow to the game in the first half. Iowa State was up by 10 at halftime. Milan Momcilovic did set the single-season three-point record for Iowa State, surpassing Dominique Willoughby. So that was exciting news from the game and kind of expected. The second half was not great. Iowa State, the game got cut down to 6 after Iowa State had a double-digit lead. It kind of felt like Iowa State was losing control of it. And Jefferson kind of took over for a couple drives. And Iowa State was able to win comfortably by 16. But looking at the box score here, and Iowa State only out-rebounded Utah by 2, 32-30. And we did force 18 turnovers. That was the biggest difference in the game. We forced 18 turnovers and only had 9 ourselves. Otherwise, that second half really got extremely scarier than it did. We shot 47% from the field, which is great, but when they shoot 46%, it's also not so great. Free throws, again, were an issue, as we shot 12 for 18. We only had 2 starters take free throws. Plato was 1 for 4, and he's not a good free throw shooter, so I'm not surprised by that. And Jefferson was 7 for 10, which is 70%, which is, I'll take that from him. Buchanan was 2 for 2, which is great, and the freshman Jamari Bateman was 2 for 2. I really liked what I saw from Jamari Bateman. I think he's really developed this season as the season's gone along, and he's earning those minutes. And that is a concern as we get more into these games towards the end of the season, because Killian Torrey, our other freshman, who I thought was going to be really good, has really kind of regressed offensively, extremely. Defensively, he's still okay, but it becomes the debate of should Bateman be starting over Torrey at this point, because Bateman provides more offense. Iowa State was led by Justin Jefferson with 21, Milan chipped in 14, Bateman had 13 off the bench, and Buchanan added 10 off the bench. You got a lot more support from the cast outside the big two of Jefferson and Milan. Other than that, there wasn't too much going on in this game. Utah did have an Iowa transfer in Tadeo Traer. Traer didn't have really much of a game at all. He was 1 for 5 from the field with 3 points. The 3 leaders for Utah, Kenu Dawes, Terrence Brown, who are both juniors, and Brown is averaging close to 20 points a game. And Don Henry is a senior for them. All had very good games, all scored double-digit points. as Iowa State walked away with a 16-point victory. And free throws still were a concern area, and the rebounding is all still a concern area, which is barely out rebounded them. Fast forward into Saturday, and there's three games I wanted to talk about quickly. You had the defending national champions in the Florida Gators playing the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Arizona Razorbacks, led by John Calipari. And the Gators put up the points, scoring 111, beating the Razorbacks by 30 plus. Very heavily fouled game with over 50 free throws taken. Very impressive that Florida shot 57% from the field, making 39 field goals. Just a very important game, especially as we went towards tournament week, as Florida Gators are trying to defend their title. The other big game going on in the Big 12, besides Iowa State and Texas Tech, was Arizona versus Kansas. Kansas got Arizona a couple weeks earlier, ruining their undefeated season in College Allen Fieldhouse. And the Wildcats came out ready for revenge, as they put the game away in the second half. Just incredible players for Arizona. I really like that Braden Burris guard they have. Jaden Brownlee. They're big at every position. They have you beat size-wise at every position, it seems like. They rebound, they defend, they shoot the three. And Kansas just had no answer as Kansas continued to struggle. And the talk of Kansas isn't so much about their play, but whether Darren Peterson should still be on the team, if he's healthy enough to be playing. It's just a very bad situation for Kansas, but Kansas is still headed into the final week of the regular season. They're looking at a potential chance at a double bye in the Big 12 tournament. And Arizona will host Iowa State on Monday, which will be a very interesting game for Iowa State, and a very tough game for Iowa State to match with the size of the Wildcats side. Iowa State hosted Texas Tech in Hilton Coliseum on Saturday, February 28th, for a 3 p.m. game on CBS, and the game really decided who would pretty much be guaranteed a double bye in the Big 12 tournament coming up in 2 weeks. And Texas Tech came out of the gate hot, and they showed they wanted it more than Iowa State did. Lipsy picked up 2 early fouls. The second one was really not bright of him to go for a rebound on a bigger guy and try to knock it loose, and he just picked up a foul. Then he had to sit for at least 8 more minutes in the first half, and by then Texas Tech had a nice little lead, and Texas Tech wanted it more. They were making shots, they were chasing the loose balls, chasing the rebounds. They had Donovan Atwell made 5 3-pointers in the first half. They made 8 of the team in the first half. And Texas Tech looked like they were ready to play for a national championship. They were complete in every aspect of their game, even without their all-star JT Toffin, who's out for the year with a torn ACL. They were elite in that first half. And Iowa State didn't look great at all. Lipsy picked up those 2 fouls, and I've said before, without Lipsy, the Iowa State team is completely different, and I stand by that probably till the end of time at this point. Blake Buchanan, who looked very rough for most of the first half, showed some life in the final media timeout of under 4 minutes, so he had 3 putbacks, keep us in contention at 45 to 29 at halftime. And some other stats from the first half. Killian Torrey was 0 for 6 from the field and 0 for 3 from 3. He was 10 for 35 from 3 entering Big 12 play, and it became very apparent as the game went on that Texas Tech had no interest in guarding Torrey, and they would let Torrey shoot the ball, because why are you going to give Jefferson or Milan or Lipsy opportunities to drive to the hoop when Torrey, the guy you can dare to shoot, and you know he's probably not going to make it? And the other big stat from the first half was Iowa State had 6 defensive rebounds, and Texas Tech had 5 offensive rebounds. And that's a terrible percentage of just rebounding the basketball. And at one point, Texas Tech was 8 for 8 from 2-pointers. I mean, Texas Tech was red hot in the first half. And Iowa State was not. You get to the second half, Iowa State played a lot better. They fought, they clawed, they got the lead down to 6 eventually from about 17, slowly but surely, forcing turnovers. Anderson got in some foul trouble for Texas Tech, Christian Anderson. And they got it down to 6 with about 8 minutes left. And then Texas Tech just went on another run. They went on a 10-0 run in about 3 minutes and 30 seconds. As Iowa State missed 4 straight shots during that same time. Buchanan was blocked twice at the rim. And Texas Tech was making a lot of shots that championship teams make. And in those instances, sometimes you just gotta shake your head, walk down the other end of the court, and just tip your cap, because the shots they were making, some of them were in the face, some of them were desperation, end of the shot clock. But I mean, they were nothing but net. I mean, they were good. They were hard to watch, but you had to be. It was also impressive at the same time. Jalen Teddy made a couple threes from the top of the key as the shot clock was expiring. And it was just really disappointing. Iowa State made a late charge again in the final 2 minutes as they forced a couple turnovers, and Milan got free for a couple threes. But just at the end of the day, it wasn't enough. I'm looking at the box score from this game. Iowa State outshot them in free throws, 27-11. So Iowa State was getting them into foul trouble, creating situations for them that would cause issues with their lineup, where they could just never capitalize and get over the hump. It seemed like whenever Iowa State would get a little momentum, Texas Tech would make a very contested shot and just take the crowd right back out of the game. And for Iowa State, Jefferson had 22 points, Milan had 20, Lipsy had 13. Those are Iowa State's 3 leading scorers. Buchanan had a great game with 8 points and 11 rebounds. And Killian Tway was 0 for 7 and 0 for 4 from 3. And probably one of the worst games of his career. And even Bateman had a bad game. He was 1 for 4 from 3, 1 for 6 from the field. But Iowa State just got out-rebounded. They gave up more assists. They had about half as many turnovers as Texas Tech at 15. And that was really, they even had fewer fouls. But I mean, this Texas Tech team is really good. Really good. Even without Toppin. And they got Watts, they got Mboye, they got Jalen Petty, really good defender and really good shot maker. Donovan Atwell makes the threes. He was 6 for 10. He had 15 points in the first half. Iowa State did shut him down in the second half. They only scored 3 points. And then their leader was Christian Anderson. And he is an elite point guard. He had to sit out the majority of the second half because of foul trouble. But he still got 14 points. And had 7 assists. Did have 6 turnovers as Iowa State ratcheted up the defensive pressure in the second half, trapping them off screens and all that. This was a really tough game to watch, and still kind of processing the Killian Torrey situation. TJ Osselberger was asked about it after the game, and he's like, this is definitely an issue, and he expects it to be fixed by the game they have tomorrow at Arizona. But I'm not sure how you see that. I think the only solution is to put Bateman in the lineup. But the issue with that is you put more offense in the lineup, then your bench rotations get messed up a little bit. And the issue with Iowa State is if you have Nate Heisey, Killian Torrey, and Taylor Lipsy on the floor at the same time, there's not really any outside threat. That just leaves either Buchanan and Jefferson, or like Jefferson and Milan Manchilovich, or Milan Manchilovich and Buchanan. Well, of those three players I just named, you only have to guard Jefferson and Milan. Buchanan's not a threat from outside, so you can really just lock down on Jefferson and Milan. If you lock those two down, you pretty much shut down Iowa State. And that's exactly what Texas Tech did. I mean, Jefferson and Milan still got 20 plus each, but Iowa State did not get any support from anybody else. And that was really the difference in the game. Iowa State did shoot 70% from the free throw line. Got to give them credit for that. That's, on average of about what their season is. And Lipsy was 7 for 10. And Jefferson was 8 for 10. So, I mean, really, two players took most of the free throws, and they shot them at a pretty high rate. So, a lot to take away from this game. Hard to lose a game at Tilden at home, especially in the Big 12, when you're fighting for a double bye in the conference tournament. But Iowa State has to be ready. They have a game on Monday at Arizona, and it's going to be a heck of a game, and if Iowa State loses it, their chances of getting double bye are even less, with Kansas and Iowa State are really the only two teams fighting for the final spot for the double bye, and I just think it's going to be a very bad situation. Not that Iowa State needs the double bye, but to have such a good regular season and end the regular season with a loss at home to Texas Tech is a really good team. And then, losing at Cincinnati, then at TCU and at BYU. Just a lot of concern for Iowa State for me right now. And we will see how that shapes up this week, and hopefully next week's podcast will be a little bit better. And now we're going to go into my 5 favorite movies as my final segment, and I hope you listen to those descriptions and maybe take some time this week to watch them. Earlier this week, before Iowa State played, I was flipping through the channels just seeing what was on. I don't really do that much anymore if it's not a sporting event. And I came across the movie Invincible, which is about a Philadelphia Eagles player who made the team through open tryouts held by first-year coach Dick Vermeil. Watching this movie got me thinking about some of my favorite sports movies of all time. And I'm going to try to keep it more basketball and baseball focused as this kind of season is right now. And my favorite movie of all time, I would have to say, is 42, about Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier and just the road he went on. It's a very emotional movie, and seeing what Jackie had to go through was not being able to stay in the same hotels, not being able to eat at the same restaurants. It's incredible to believe that that happened. And it's a very emotional movie. Seeing Jackie not able to sleep at the same hotels, eat at the same restaurants, getting spiked on the field, getting called insensitive names by fans during the game, by opposing managers. And just a very great movie, and I would definitely recommend this for any baseball fan. Number 2 on my list is Moneyball, which is about Billy Beane, who was the general manager for the Oakland Athletics. And just a very numbers game. Reminds me a lot of what I wanted to be when I was growing up, because I couldn't really play sports. Obviously, I still wanted to be involved in sports in some capacity. So then that's when you get to look more into the analytical aspect of the numbers, whether that's the stats, or in this case financially, with putting a team together with a set amount of money you have. And I just really love that aspect. It's very well done. Very. Number 3 on the list, which is very similar to number 2, and just a different sport, is Draft Day, which is going through the NFL draft process, scouting players, learning about them, learning just behind them. And number 3 on the list, we have Draft Day, which is very similar to Moneyball in some ways. It focuses on the NFL draft process and learning about the players on and off the field, and just how that all ties together. And sometimes you have to dig deeper than just the stats. And it's a really unique part that maybe common fans don't know as much, but there's so much that goes into building a team. You can have the best players, but the best players aren't always going to win. And the way this really differs from Moneyball is it focuses more on the off season and how things are a little bit slower. You have more time to react if something happens. Whereas in season, if you have an injury, you kind of have to move quickly to replace that injury if you still want to remain competitive. So it's just a very different angle of looking at things. I think it's a very important aspect to know as well. The fourth movie I have on my list is Coach Carter, which is about a high school basketball team where players are really talented, but they come from troubled backgrounds or have trouble keeping their grades up. And it believes that high school has a really poor graduation rate. So there's a lot of character building and just playing together as a team. And it's a really good story, really emotional story as well. And maybe how sometimes tough love is the best love. That's why it makes my number four. Tough love is hard sometimes, but you have to do it if you want people to learn the right way to be. And the number five movie on my list is Rocky IV. There's just so much ups and downs in this movie and perseverance and as a gut with Rocky watching his friend die in the ring and then he goes over and fights that same fighter in his home country with the odds against him. And there's just no chance and Rocky being Rocky, he just finds a way to get it done and that's what makes sports so great sometimes. Is just finding a way to win. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter what all you have to go through, the journey is what makes the story sometimes. As the Rational Homer wraps up episode 2, I hope everyone has a great week. And remember, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for sports-related content you'd like me to react to, send an email to rationalhomer@gmail.com.